the Solent, one of the busiest bodies of water in the UK, the heart of the English boating scene and a playground for the Sunseekers, Fairlines and Princesses of this world. But is a hunky Italian about to muscle in on the tea party?
This Italian, to be precise, the Pardo GT52. Looks bloody good, doesn't it? That familiar Pardo reverse shear hull with this sleek, stubby, purposeful wheelhouse plonked on top. It just works. It's a stylish Italian cruiser with year-round usability. It's basically a Targa in a Gucci suit, isn't it? Let's find out. I'm Jack Haines, welcome to YachtBuyer. Before we get up to speed, be sure to subscribe to the channel, then you'll never miss one of our reviews. Hit subscribe and the bell icon, you'll be notified every time one goes live. Right, let's get up to speed. There are 3 IPS engine options on this model. You can have IPS 600, 650, or what we've got, IPS 800, that is 600 horsepower per side. I've got the boat in single lever mode at the moment, so one throttle arm is controlling both engines. And yeah, let's get up to speed and see how it feels. I've got trim assist on. So the interceptors, which are standard fit on this model, will automatically work to keep the boat at the best trim considering what speed I'm doing. We're now at 15 knots, I'll just feed in a few more revs. And that's the benefit of having these 600 horsepower motors over the smaller ones. Plenty of grunt to get up onto the plane. It is not a rough day today, but that progression up to planing speed is really smooth. And now we're at 25 knots. Where this boat feels really happy, and it's quiet as well. It's sort of in and around 70 decibels at cruising speed, which is par for the course for an IPS boat of this size with a wheelhouse. Obviously you've got the insulation of the glass house, plus the fact the engines are quite a long way back, and that does make for a very quiet cruising experience. We have got these side windows at the moment open for a bit of air. Obviously with those closed it's even more quiet. But it is incredibly refined, and this is a very different beast to the Endurance range. We've tested the Endurance 60, that video is on the channel. That is a 25 knot boat, cruises at 18, 20 knots. This is closer to a 30 knot boat, and you're cruising anywhere between 22 and 25 knots. And the thing about it is, and much is the same as many IPS boats of this size, when you're planing, there is not a huge amount of difference in terms of fuel consumption. There's sort of 10, 20 nautical miles in it in terms of range, whether you want to do 22 knots or whether you want to do 27 knots. So it's really about how you feel and what the conditions are like. And yeah, today there's a little bit of wash around from other boats on a busy Solent day. 23 knots feels absolutely great, and that's going to give you probably 275 nautical miles of cruising. In terms of handling, well, it's pretty nice. It's incredibly smooth. The steering is light. It's very familiar IPS. If any of you have driven IPS boats before, you know, it's fly-by-wire steering, so it is effortless just to guide this thing from side to side. It doesn't heel all that much, certainly not compared to a stern drive sports cruiser, but it's fun, it's nice, it's rewarding. It raises a smile without being all that exciting really. But certainly if you want to negotiate some waves, or you have to manoeuvre out the way of something at short notice, then it responds really, really nicely, and it is very happy in a straight line. I've tested a few of the Pardo open boats and of course the Endurance 60, and they do go very smoothly over the water. These hulls look minimalistic, they look like they're cued towards aesthetics rather than actually being any good at going through the sea, but that is not the case. We've crossed lots of ferry wash today, we've crossed our own wash a lot, and it does romp through it really, really nicely. And of course the beauty of this, it's a nice day today, but if it's not, we are fully enclosed, and there's lots of different ways to ventilate this area. Manual windows on both sides, they're great today. It's relatively hot, but they provide enough ventilation for us not to be too warm in here. But of course we have the sunroof, which I can open at the touch of a button, and then you get a lot more breeze blowing into this area, and that's lovely. On a warmer day that would be really refreshing. Of course, the touch of a button, close it up, and there are blinds as well. There's a mosquito net and a blind, so you can get some shade when the roof is shut. The driving position could be better in my opinion. This seat does rise up and down at the touch of a button, so you can go lower and you can go higher, but I'm dying for a little bit of sliding fore and aft. If I sit back, I'm just a bit too far away. I like that I can stand so easily. There isn't a bolster, but the seats come up high enough when you push it. that I can lean here quite comfortably and I've got a good view through the window. And that's something I was concerned about. That windscreen is inwardly raked. It looks very shallow, and I was concerned that you'd have a bit of a letterbox view. But actually, you don't. The view out is really good, and it's got such a flat foredeck, you've got a really clear view of the bow. And actually, the all-round view is really nice as well. There's so much glass in here, full glass across the back of this area too, that you can see around really easy. And I like the fact that I can just pop my head out and check my starboard side if I need to do a hard turn to starboard. I'd love to see a side door here. That would really add to the functionality, and we'll talk about that more when we get inside the marina and do a bit of berthing, because that's where that would come into play. But it's nice to be able to talk to crew, and the ventilation's really good. It's a plain helm station. It's very dark, there's very little glare. This is a bit shiny, but this is all nice rubberized material. I definitely have another MFD. Obviously you can spec that if you want, this boat's not got it, but just one on a boat of this size, I think you're going to want more than that. So you're going to have engine information and navigation on the other. It's got a bow thruster, an optional bow thruster, this one. Nice to see hard controls as well, so you don't have to use the touchscreens, the MFD, if you don't want to. And then we've got some hard switches down here for lighting, windscreen wipers, that sort of stuff. Not quite as stylish as the outside of the boat. I feel like this helm station could be working a little bit harder for what is such a stylish boat. But I've got to say, it's a really pleasant boat to drive, and yeah, a really refined, relaxed cruiser that will cover the yards nice and comfortably. So that's the driving experience. We're going to get on to, as I said, the mooring and slow speed handling later on, but for now I think we should anchor up and we'll have a look at the decks in the interior. Let's start down here at the waterline then, and a lot of the optional extras that you're going to be paying for on this boat are in this area, and one of them is this extended hydraulic bathing platform. It's a €30,000 option, but it is also the way that you'll launch the tender, and it's big enough to carry a Williams 325, and it is a really big platform. There's plenty of space to move around on here, and when it drops down into the water, it's got both integrated steps and this little lip here. It's not that wide, but you can just trace your way along here, along the back of the boat, so you can cross along the transom even when the platform is down in the water. And up in the cockpit, the practical stuff begins. You've got really nice mooring gear, these lovely Pardo branded pop-up cleats that stop at a couple of different levels, and this is also where you find the deck shower. It's actually really nicely made. It's all metal, it's not plastic. You can pull out the hose like this and you've got hot and cold, so you can have a quick wash off when you come out of the sea. And then some really good storage solutions as well. A couple of fenders will fit in lockers on both sides here. You can put the lines in there as well, and we'll come into more of the deck storage later on, especially up front where it's got a very big anchor locker. And you're probably getting a sense of this seating arrangement here, which is very clever. Again, it's an option, about €15,000, to have the high-low table and these backrests that will drop down all the way around. They're just on ratchets, so you can put them at various different heights along their travel. You put them right up like that, and then obviously this is in dining mode, and actually this is really comfortable. I thought they might be a bit too far back, but actually this is a nice place to sit. The only thing is, if you're large of thigh, this is as high as the table goes and it's a little bit tight, but a comfortable place to sit. And then when they all fold down, this drops right down to the level of the other cushions. There's another infill cushion, and you create what is a really large sun pad. And again, there's also a bimini shade overhead. It's a €17,000 option. There's a push button down there, and that will extend all the way out and in fact cover this entire area. So if you want some shade while you're having lunch, that will do a really good job of providing that. A couple of other points. I like these seats here as well. It's always nice, I think, to be able to sit and look back over the boat. It's very sheltered as well, because you've got the protection of the wheelhouse and the fact they've got cup holders built in too, so you can drop your drink or your phone, other loose items down there when the boat's moving along. And then of course you've got some cooling space here, because the Galley in this version is downstairs. We'll talk about the arrangements later on. It is quite useful to have this fridge here, so you don't have to always go downstairs to get cold drinks or some food. And the other thing you can do is add a couple more drawer fridges under here. At the moment these are just voids, very good for storing lines, life jackets, that sort of thing, but you can put cool boxes in there if you prefer. Let's head to the foredeck. Being based on the 50 Open, this feels quite familiar. It has that same walk around feel back here. Obviously things change a little bit as we get forward, and there are other carryovers as well. You've got these clip-in sockets for the fenders dotted along the deck. Of course the Open boat has no railing, so you have to use those, and they're quite useful. They're good in your home berth because you know your fenders are always going in the same place and the same length, but you have to adjust them. It's a lot trickier than just hanging them over a rail and adjusting the height. However, we have at least got these cords, which you'll want as we move forward, as you'll see. The other thing you have is a nice railing up here and along here. This one's recessed underneath, perfect to grab onto, and then as you move forward, again, the cords are quite low, so it's nice to have this really substantial handrail here to help guide you forward as you move onto the foredeck, which is a nice space. It's very flat. You feel very much like you're on the boat rather than in the boat at this stage. And as I said, these are optional, but it's nice to have them. They're not as sturdy as obviously a full stainless steel rail, but of course they wanted to get that compromise of aesthetics and practicality. So they serve a purpose, but it's not like having a solid rail here, of course. But there's a lot of space up here, and it's completely flat too, very easy to move around. We're rolling around a little bit, as you've probably spotted. This boat hasn't got the seakeeper fitted, though it is an option if you do want to have that. And you've got some sunbathing space down here. And you've spotted the hatches as well in the deck. Obviously, they're delivering natural light down into the cabin below. Talking of fender storage as well, it's got a really large forward anchor locker, this boat, and the nice thing about it is it's very deep, but they've also got things in there that you can tie the ends of the fenders to, so if you drop them down there, you have to go all the way in to get them back out again. You can just pull them out by their lines, and it's got the same anchor mechanism that will be quite familiar to people who've seen Pardos before, so it's completely hidden, but it's all off one control, so you push it out, it pops out, then the anchor goes down, you pull it back in again, and it all closes up, and you'd never know it was there. Of course, they want to maintain that lovely reverse shear on the bow, and it does look really good. Let's head inside. Well, obviously, this is the big change for the GT52 over the open range. You have this wheelhouse, but it does connect nicely to the cockpit because this window pops up, as so. Taller people will just have to watch their heads on that corner because it's relatively low and it's quite sharp as well. And obviously this is the main door. This slides across to give you access right down the middle into this area. On this side we've got storage, bottle storage on both sides, but there is an option, on this side at least, to have a wine cooler there instead rather than just bottle storage. And down here there's a bit more storage as well, just a bit of drawer storage underneath the sofa. And then in this corner there's control for the television. It's on a high-low mechanism. So unfortunately it's not one touch, you have to hold the button down. It's not particularly fast either, but obviously that will go all the way up, so it's facing that dinette over there. And yeah, this is your main internal dining space here. Just a note on headroom, you know, I'm 6 foot tall, you can see there's not massive space above my head, so if you're much taller than that, then of course this wheelhouse looks great from the outside because it's so sleek, but a compromise is that head heights aren't amazing once you're standing up inside. And as I said, there are options here in terms of the layout, so you can have the galley on deck, and if you do that, it goes here. This has got the lower galley arrangement, as we'll see in a moment, and I think that's the one to go for, as I'll explain in a second. And this is quite clever. If I just pop these, obviously this is the helm seat, so you've got a two-way backrest. If I put these up here, there is a control on the helm, and this will then drop down so that it's not redundant space when the boat's stationary. If that's just facing forward fixed backrest, then really no one's going to want to use that when the boat's still. But when it's down like this, this creates a really, really nice spot where you can sit looking back out over the water on a rainy day, as may occasionally happen here in the UK. You can still have everything open, you're nice and sheltered, and you've still got wonderful views out the back of the boat. I really like that spot. You may have seen there's a pull tab over here on this side, and that, believe it or not, is a crew space. We're going to get down there later on and explain a bit more about it, but that is where that is, hidden underneath that tab, so stick around to have a look down there. For now, let's go downstairs and have a look at the rest of the accommodation. As I said, this boat has got the galley down arrangement, and I personally think that is the arrangement to go for. If the galley's on deck, it's a lot smaller, and it also gobbles up a lot of your valuable seating room. So for me, this is the way to go. And also because of the arrangement of this area, how open this area is, you are still very well connected to those who are sitting up there. You don't feel like you're out of the action if you're down in the galley. It is lovely and bright, glass from the sunroof, glass from the windscreen, and big portholes on either side. And it's got a light colour scheme as well. This oak wood is really nice, and again, it brightens up the area. So what have we got in the galley itself? Well, there's an under-counter fridge. You've not got domestic size fridge and freezer, but that's a good size. And you've also got a top-loading cooler as well, which is always quite handy. Big sink here, quite a small hob, but you know, 2-burner hob there, and then this is storage up here next to the microwave. Really nice chunky fiddles on these as well, so things can't slide out. On that note, I would like to see a little ledge on all of this countertop. Just means if you're leaving stuff lying around, it's not going to roll onto the floor at sea. And then this is all storage down here as well. You're not short of storage when it comes to the galley, and again, that's another reason I think to have the galley down arrangement. Now, something else you can do is actually have a cabin here. If you've got the galley on the main deck, you can have a bunk cabin.
not going to be all that spacious. Again, I think 2-cabin galley down is the way to go. In terms of the cabins, let's begin with the guest cabin. This is a twin bed arrangement here in the entranceway. Headroom is pretty good, just over 6 feet of headroom. The obvious compromise is here where the helm is. When you're over the berths, it's very much sitting room only. The berths are a decent size in themselves, and it's nice that there's a side table in between. You've got repeaters for all the lighting, air conditioning, sockets up there, and the bendy reading lights as well, which is always quite handy. There's also a television mounted on the wall that will pop out so that those can lie in bed and watch it. Storage wise, got a little shelf up here for odds and ends. Got some storage in this section here as well, and it's got access to the day heads but through a private entrance. And this is a good space. I'm in a separate shower cube, and as you can see, I've got a rain shower head with lights in it above my head, which is very nice. There's a little smoked window here as well for some natural light, and there's a shower on a wand too. Nice detailing. In fact, the fit out down here is lovely. It feels very, very solid and robust, and nice components as well with Tecmar electric toilets. I like this detail, how the sink seems to hover over this unit. It's got a fiddled edge here so things can't roll off if you put stuff under the sink. There's some storage underneath too, storage behind the mirror. It's clean, crisp, quite minimalist, but it all feels of very high quality. And through this door, this is main access back out into the interior. Now, contrary to current trends, the owner's cabin is actually forward, and they've played around with the layout a little bit. I think it works pretty well. The bed is running across the boat. It's at a slight angle, but they've done that to try and give equal space at either side so both occupants can move around the bed easily. But the benefit of it being this way is the views out of the whole windows. You can lie in bed with your head at window level and look out over the water. It's a lovely vista. There's also a skylight overhead. Obviously that brings in natural light. It also opens for some ventilation, and of course the boat has got air conditioning. In terms of storage, there's a big wardrobe here with some drawer storage beneath. There's big bins either side of the bed, and then you've got these eye level lockers. These are closed, these are open. But yeah, it's not too bad. Could maybe do some storage under the bed just to add a little bit of extra storage space throughout. It has also got a TV, and that will pivot away from the wall, so you can turn it to face the bed, and then when you want to tuck it away you can just pin it up against the wall. That's quite a simple mechanism that works well. The other thing they've done is put the head right forward where technically it should be, and that again gives you a nice amount of space. Totally private, of course. One thing you will notice if you're over 6 foot tall is the head height of the door frames is quite low. So you just have to tuck your head as you step through the door. But once you're in the cabin spaces and the bathrooms, headroom is pretty good. Again, more ventilation, natural light in here. It's got space for a separate shower cubicle, and the same componentry and the nice finish that you have in the day head. Let's go and check out that crew cabin now. Right, let's have a look at this skipper's cabin, as they call it. Well, this is very much an owner-run boat, so whether you need this skipper's cabin at all is up for debate. It's also 11,000 euros. What do you get when you have it though? Well, it's got this ladder to bring you down, which is telescopic, so you can move this out of the way once you're inside. You have a single berth, a little opening hull window over there. I'm actually sitting on the toilet, and there's a sink over here, which is quite natty. It comes down with a mirror above and some storage over there. Ultimately, I think it's 11,000 euros you could spend elsewhere on the boat if you're speccing one of these from new, and if you don't have it, you just have what is actually a really useful storage void. But yeah, probably an optional extra you could avoid. Let's head to the engine room. Engine room access on this boat is through a hatch in the cockpit. You can see the ladder behind me, and like the crew cabin, that's telescopic, so you can move it up and out the way if you're working down here. It's stooping room only, really, but the engines are very well positioned, easy to work around them and get over them, inspect things. Same with the IPS pods as well. There's plenty of clearance over the top, and you'll notice that they're connected to the engines by jack shafts, just moving the weight of the engines a bit further forward to help with the trim. You've got stainless steel fuel tanks on either side, and they've got sight gauges, so you can see the fuel level from down here, which is always quite handy. And it's very neatly arranged as well. All the plumbing, all the pipe work, the wiring is all neatly run around the engine room, so it's very easy to spot issues, it's easy to spot leaks, it's clean and it's tidy. The only real downside is the headroom restriction, but actually once you're down here, it's not too bad. Let's get them fired up and see what she's like in the marina. Well, of course, this is IPS, so that means it's slow speed. You're onto the joystick. This has got the optional bow thruster, which any of you who've watched my videos will know I'd recommend, just to give you that fine bit of control of the bow. And yeah, it's typically manoeuvrable at slow speed, responds really nicely to the joystick.
Nice even movements as we move down the fairway here. Like when you're at speed, all round view is great. I can see all corners of the boat, just see the edge of the bathing platform as well, which is nice when you're backing in. And of course I can poke my head out that window if I need to. We are coming in starboard side too, so that will come in useful. I mean, it's very kind conditions, and that means you can be quite progressive with the joystick, just feeding the power gently, and the boat reacts pretty well. Yeah, this really does demonstrate the beauty of IPS. You're not twiddling joysticks, thrusters. When conditions are like this, you're just focused on one control, and it's so measured now. There's no rolling around or bobbing. Granted, it's calm, but yeah, it does take quite a lot of the thinking out of doing manoeuvres like this. And then once you've got a bit of momentum, you can just let the elements do the work. This window is actually really useful. I've said a side door would make it better. It's just not possible with the height of the deck, but it does mean you can, as long as you start beside two, really easily spot yourself and talk to the crew. Yeah, it's pretty good. And you've got one on the other side as well if you need to do it over there.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about pricing. The base price of the 52 GT with IPS 600 is just over 1.2 million euros excluding VAT. However, our test boat had a number of cost options fitted to produce a turnkey spec, including the IPS 800 engine upgrade, sunroof with shade, extended bathing platform, the exterior dining area with high-low table, the cockpit bimini, the bow thruster, a 9 kilowatt generator, air conditioning, and the electric anchor system. The prices tested for this boat was just under 1.73 million euros excluding VAT, with the only other optional extra you might consider being a Seakeeper gyroscopic stabiliser for better stability at rest.
Let's wrap up with some likes and dislikes about the GT52 then. I do like how that bow looks, and I understand why they've used that anchor mechanism, but it does worry a bit if something goes wrong with that. It is quite complicated. There are some issues with headroom on board, and despite having that wonderful living area out back, it's a bit of a shame that there's nowhere actually to cook, so a wet bar grill or a cooktop would be welcome. However, the things I do like is how easy this boat is to live with, how easy it is to convert that aft deck from sunbathing to dining, how easy it is to move around on and crew, and how easy it is to live with, because you can just pull the door shut and leave. It's a very lock up and leave type boat, and it's an easy boat to drive both at slow speed and high speed. A Targa in a Gucci suit? Maybe not, but it should certainly give the Brits something to worry about. And let me know in the comments below what you think of this new model from Pardo. Thanks very much for watching that sea trial and review. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give it a like if you did. If you want to watch our sea trial of this boat's big sister, the Endurance 60, we've got that on the channel. I'll put that for you up there. More sea trial content down here. And if you'd like to subscribe, you can do that by clicking up here. Thanks again for watching. I'm Jack Haines. This is YachtBuyer.